Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Tasty Tidbits podcast. Get ready to receive rich, well-seasoned, and tasteful tidbits to transform your life. Each week, Dr. Tiffany comes to you with inspirational encouragement and thought-provoking interviews to help revolutionize your walk with God. Are you hungry for more of His presence? Then get ready. And now, your host, author, intuitive life coach, and pastor, Dr. Tiffany Watkins.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Tasty Tidbits. I am your host, Dr. Tiffany Watkins, and I'm so excited to have you again on another episode. And one reason that I'm really excited to talk today with our special guest, David, is because we're going to talk about something that is talking about time management. And wow, this is something that I believe and I know that we should all be able to handle and grasp and be able to get to a point in our life where we're able to manage our time to the best of our abilities. And so I'm going to introduce our special guest to you today and let you know a little bit more about him before we get started. And our guest today is David Buck, and David is the author of The Time Optimized Life. He has 35 plus years of organizational and time management experience that led him to start Kairos Management Solutions and the Infinity Lifestyle Design Program. David empowers business professionals to overcome the struggles of life and the lack of the flexibility in life. He helps his clients craft a strategy to optimize their time that defines a lifestyle focused on meaning, purpose, and joy. Dave resides in Florida with his wife, the Reverend Dr. Susan Rose. So thank you for being a part of the podcast, David. How are you today?
I am doing well, Dr. Watkins. I am so pleased to be on and honored to be a guest on your show.
Yes, and I'm just so excited to have you on the show today. But before we get started, let the listeners know a little bit more about yourself.
So I have this fascination with time. And by the way, kudos to you. You said Kairos correctly. That's awesome. So Kairos is one of the Greek words for time. And it is what we call qualitative time, the time that how you use your time, how you spend your time. And I've always been fascinated by that. I have had a career in sales, a long career. And I knew early on that, very jokingly, my stunning good looks and amazing personality weren't going to get me anywhere in sales. And so I found I needed to be as prepared or better prepared than my competition. And that was revolved around how was I going to use my time? And that became a benefit for my clients because I turned around and as I worked and did my time better, I made their time easier to deal with me. And it was easier for them to be a client and to work with me.
Wow. And that's so exciting. And I'm ready to hear about that. And, today our topic is on time management. So just delve into a little bit more of what time management really means to you. You just let the listeners know a little bit more about that.
So the term time management to me, I am not actually a fan of that. We have to use it. We use it. But the reason why is not only in my own personal journey, but as I have worked with clients, people have a tendency when they manage their time, they're reactive. We have a hard time saying no. We want to please people generally. And so what happens is many people do the first thing is the first thing they want to get done instead of prioritizing. So to me, management is reactive, where I want people to think of it as time optimization, where you're optimizing or you're being proactive. So it takes an investment of time, quote, on the front end to set up a strategy on how you want to use your time. So therefore, you're in a better position to either negotiate with others when they want to use your time or to adjust when you feel a higher priority comes your way.
I love that statement about optimizing your time. And it doesn't seem like it restricts you when you use it like that. It actually seems like it expands you to give you more opportunity to be able to be successful and do what you need to do. And so you, even in writing your book, The Time Optimized Life, tell us about a little bit how it's different and how it will help people improve their use of time.
Sure. And thank you for mentioning and asking that. The idea behind the time optimized life is not for you to have 5 steps that everyone can do the exact same thing, and all of a sudden you're magically using your time that much better. We're all unique creatures of God. We have all unique attributes, and the book attempts to draw out your unique strengths, but also your opportunities. So where are the areas in your life that, gosh, I could probably work a little bit better at that? And so the book weaves you through a process by which you then identify your main areas you want to improve. And then the book has tips and solutions and ideas behind it that will help you. But one of the other things that was important to me is I didn't want me to I have a passion for time. People picking up my book might not. But if they want to improve their time, I included people in my life who I know have done amazing jobs in a particular category, and they're featured in the chapters. So you don't just hear me lecture you, you get to hear real world solutions from people who do that particular thing well in their lives. So it's not just me, but it's others who you get to hear from.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And, I know the listeners are probably sitting here wondering, they have so many issues when it comes to managing their time, or shall we say, optimizing our time. So, what is the biggest issue the average person has with managing their time? And give us some solutions about what they can do to overcome that.
By far, the biggest item that people struggle with is distractions. And I define distractions as internal. They're internally based. So you own it. It's your issue, but it's an internal based disruption that causes you to lose focus on something important and shift to something less important. And the biggest culprit for distractions for us is our smartphone.
Yes.
It is this amazing productivity tool. So on one hand, I am a huge fan of what the phone can do to help us be more productive. But really what we are right now, it's almost designed to distract us, whether it be the text messages we receive, the notifications through all the apps that we have who want our attention. That by far is the single biggest challenge that people have in their life.
David, I have to 100% totally agree with that. I was thinking about that when you said that before I even got on. I was in my prayer time and reading my study time, and I had my phone on. So as I had my phone on, the phone just kept beeping. And I'm like, every time I'm trying to, study, read, the phone beeps every few seconds. If you subscribe to something, then your phone, you're going to get a text message from the subscriptions. And so you are so correct that it is a distraction. So even with doing this podcast, of course, we have to get rid of our phones because if we don't and put it aside, it's going to be a distraction even with that. And so I've learned and continue to learn when I'm trying to focus on particular things. If I don't want to be distracted, I have to let go of my phone for a little bit and just put it to the side until I finish that particular task. If not, it will become a distraction.
To your listeners, go back, rewind it, that 30 seconds, and play that again. That is exactly what we all need to do. Because for me, so the guy who's supposed to be the time management expert, distractions are my number one thing. And to your point, my phone is quarantined off to the side. It's down, it's on silent because I don't want to take my focus off of what we're doing here. And that one tip of quarantining your phone when you need to do something important, you're going to be able to get done with that important item that you should. And you can probably wait on the number of likes you got on that last social media post, or the text from a friend saying, "What are you doing?" You can probably wait for an hour, 2 or 3 hours to get back to those, and you'll find the world hasn't changed a whole lot.
And we could sit on that all day, but I think that's a pause issue right there, David, because that number one thing will keep you from being productive, if you just allow it to continue to be there. And in just doing anything, even before just getting started, I had several phone calls that were coming through, and even in trying to prepare for this. And so sometimes you have to plan ahead. Okay, 30 minutes before my assignment or 30 minutes before something that I have to do, I need to, as David said, quarantine my phone to be able to focus, to prepare effectively in order to do what I need to do to be successful, and to make sure that I'm producing quality material, or that I'm doing my best job to do what I know that I've been assigned to do.
That is so correct. Again, great. I tell everybody, go back, replay that, because that is what I call time optimized gold right there. The idea that you're disciplined enough, and it doesn't have to be all day. So it's not like, okay, I go
Right.
to work and I'm quarantining my phone for the 8 or 9 hours that I'm working. It's simply providing structure. When you know there's something important in your day that you need to work on, you need to do everything you can, not only to minimize those type of distractions, but other distractions around you. If you're in a noisy work environment, do you need to move to another location if that's possible, so that you are able to be more focused? Do you proactively go out to your coworkers and even your boss and say, for the next 2 hours, I got this important thing I have to get done. So forgive me. I'm not engaging in any conversation that's happening. I'm going to be really, really focused on this thing so I can get it done. Those are the proactive steps. Just think proactively. What can you do to anticipate what might distract you, knowing you're not going to get everything perfect, but
Hmm.
it's all about incremental wins, and the idea that you eventually will develop habits and patterns that you'll find you're being distracted a lot less.
Hmm. Hmm. And David, just another thing that came to mind is just distractions from ourselves. Maybe not necessarily our cell phones, but just from our minds, because we have so many things that are going through our minds on a constant daily basis. Maybe assignments that we have to complete. What are we going to do when we get home to our families? The thing that we have to do next week or the next day, and they're just all pressing, and sometimes it distracts us from focusing on the task at hand. What advice could you give to the listeners about how to manage that, even with our thoughts and distracting our time?
I love that you wove in the personal aspect of life, because distractions aren't just about your career or your work, it's about your life in general. So I coach my clients to plan your calendar 2 weeks out. And people might be
Hmm.
saying, 2 weeks out? What is he, crazy? The idea, the principle behind that is the first week should be fairly structured, should be
Hmm.
something that you should have, you should know what you're kind of doing in every hour. It doesn't mean you have to be all detailed, but it just means that your calendar reflects you're going to be investing time in things that are important to you. And then the second week is what I call wet cement. If anyone seen cement being poured, gets laid into a foundation, but then typically, if there's a lot of kids around, they're going to put their handprints in there. There's things that can change in that second week. And that's what I want you to think. You lay an outline for the second week, but you know it's going to change. But again, you're proactively saying, I'm going to try to identify all the areas for me in the next 2 weeks that are important, and challenge myself or others if they come to me wanting to carve out time in those particular areas.
And so great. And, David, and also that helps others to respect your time as well. Because if you're looking at your calendar, you say, okay, for the couple of weeks, I have this scheduled ahead of time, and I have to stick to this unless it's an emergency. It helps people to understand that your time is important and that you have to make sure that you get certain things done. And it sends a signal to them as well, is that their time is important, especially if you're having to schedule people in on your calendar, or you having to get certain tasks and assignments done. It helps each of you to respect each other's time as well. Do you agree with that, David?
Totally agree with that. And the idea behind what you just talked about is we're afraid sometimes to say no.
Hmm.
And we want to please. We don't want to be seen as not a team player or not flexible. But by planning your time out at least 2 weeks in advance, you get that opportunity to not necessarily say no, but negotiate. So the idea is if someone comes to you and says, hey, Dave, I need your time right now. You can, I usually use this term when that happens to me, or this question is, so on a scale of 1 to 10 for you, 1 is it's not a high priority at all. 10, it's a zombie apocalypse and we have to move now. Where do you fit in there? And usually when people come to you, it's a 5 or less. It's not, it's just for them. It's top of mind. They're coming to you because you can help solve their problem because it's top of mind. And then you kind of say, once you understand the level of importance, then you just simply start to negotiate to say, okay, hey, listen, later this afternoon, at the end of the day, I've got an hour open right now. I can change a couple things, come back here. And then so you negotiate a time that fits ideally you, but also fits them. So you can be accommodating that says, okay, I can change a couple things, but you have the opportunity to address how that's going to impact you if you stop what you're doing now and fit it into a time frame that's going to allow you to maintain the important things you need to do.
That's awesome. And David, what are some of the things that could negatively affect us if we don't get a hold of our time and able to optimize our time? What are some things that could happen if we don't manage that?
So there's probably 3 main things that will happen is you will continue to scramble. So you're always going to be in a reactive mode to it. And I've seen people who have been very successful at that, but then that leads to the second challenge is it's going to have negative effects on your health. Now, I'm not a physician. I'm not a medical professional. I only go by what I've seen with my own clients. And then I've also researched. It has negative, your stress level raises. You might have opportunities, challenging sleep. You probably aren't going to eat right because you're scrambling and eating while you're trying to do other things. And that has the next negative impact on that. And then the third element for me is you are challenged on work-life flexibility. And I didn't say work-life balance. I mean work-life flexibility because balance is hard to maintain. The idea behind flexibility is that when you have a big project at work, you have to invest more time at work. You are proactively telling family, friends, those affected, saying for the next couple of weeks, I really have to be focused on this project. We have to deliver at work. So I'm going to be investing more time there. Then on the flip side, when you have something important in your life, so let's say a child's in a play, they're the lead in a play, and you need to be there to see that. You have at work the ability to say, I need to leave a little early on Thursday because I want to make sure I got a front row seat to see my child. The idea is you're building relationship capital in both sides of your life so that when the time is needed, you can draw on that capital, whether it's family, friends on the personal side, boss, coworkers on the professional side, to weave in things that are important to you on both sides of your life.
That's so great because, you often hear people say, well, I work better under pressure. But after a long time of working under pressure, it does take effect on your blood pressure, possibly your mind, like you said earlier. And, and could it be that we work better under pressure because we did not prepare beforehand? And a lot of times that's what it is, or we like to procrastinate. But if you could change that cycle of procrastination and change your process thinking more towards planning and pre-planning, like you were saying earlier, David, it could take a lot of stress out of being able to have to work under pressure. What do you believe about that, David?
I'll use my own personal example earlier in my career. We had to create at one of my previous jobs, we had to create a tool that analyzed and predicted what kind of apparel we had to buy. I worked for a company that did screen t-shirts. And so they bought hundreds of thousands of t-shirts to put images on them. And we were developing the program, and the owner of the company and this is not a criticism of him, he
Right.
said, we've got to get this done very quickly. Well, what happened was we were all working under pressure, heightened in our productivity, but we ended up making 3 mistakes that we had to go back and redo. 2 of them were me. I didn't have a formula right, and I couldn't figure out what it was. He was a little frustrated because he says, every time you tell me you're done, we find another mistake. And I finally said, if we had just pushed this out another 48 hours and set that as a timeline and a due date, we would have had a little bit more time to work through and double check our work before we tried to make it go live and reset it and then having to reset. So sometimes that's where I tell people, if it's important to you and you carve out your time, add 20 to 50% more onto it. Because if it's really important to you, it's not going to go the way you plan. And it's usually going to take longer. And as long as you build in that extra time, that relieves the working under pressure bit. That's going to minimize the mistakes.
Yes, and something you said earlier, about our phones and about social media, you can stop it, it'll still be there. And if what you have been supposed to be working on, your assignment, if you have to push it a little bit further out, it will still be as successful, if not more successful, and you will get better results because you've decided to do it to get quality versus quantity. And so that's very important.
Very much so. And for your for what you just mentioned about quality, that goes back to the name of my company, Kairos, and the Greek word for that is quality time. So we all spend an hour at the same rate. It does an hour for you is the same as an hour for me. But what happens in that hour and how we choose to spend that hour, it can be, oh, this hour is taking me forever to get through, or it can be, wow, that was really productive. I can't believe how fast that went. That's the quality measurement of time. And I think we all would like to be in a situation where after we've invested time, we're thinking, that was really, really time well spent.
And David, and I want to ask you one more thing before we try to wrap it up, but what are the most common time management challenges to people while they're in their careers?
So distractions, we talked about that. The second one you actually mentioned, and that's procrastination. And just procrastination is a close second to distractions, but I would say that procrastination has the greater impact from the standpoint of companies economically, because employees who procrastinate, it's usually tied to something that's important. And we also do it on our personal side. So the areas really quickly that you can do from the idea of minimizing procrastination is better define what it is you're working on. Usually when we procrastinate, it's because it's just too general. So I use the example of like painting your room. If you want to paint your bedroom, if I just say I'm going to paint my bedroom, it's easy for me to push that off for the next week to the next week. But if I break it down into smaller chunks that says, okay, first of all, by next week, we're going to pick the color. And then the next weekend, I'm going to buy all the supplies I need. And then the next weekend, I'm going to test that color on the wall just to make sure it's okay. And then the next weekend, we're going to go after it and paint. You've broken it down into chunks that show progress. So that's why I tell people, take that and make it into a series of smaller tasks. And then you find yourself, it's a nice little self affirming deed that says, I'm making progress on.
That's so good. I was just sitting here thinking about that, David, and it gives you that when you know that you accomplished that one task for that particular time, it's like, oh, I got that done. And so it also gives you a little bit of excitement about you can't wait to accomplish the next task because it's not going to seem like it's overwhelming. It's something that you can do. It's doable, and you're able to do it within that next time frame because you don't feel overwhelmed.
And that's where I tell leaders, particularly, if you're going to give something like, hey, we need this report due on Tuesday, you owe it to the team to break down exactly what it is they're going to need to do to accomplish that report, almost in as much as you can steps, and obviously each situation is unique, but the more you're able to provide them with specifics on how to accomplish that, the more they're going to say, okay, when you come calling saying, how are we doing? You could say, we're 50% done. And we still have 3 more days to do it. And you know what? We might even get it done a day earlier because they know exactly what they have to do to get it done.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wow, David, this has been such a great interview and just being able to talk with you about time management or time optimization, should we say.
Thank you.
And, I know that the listeners have truly been blessed by just hearing this and want to find out more information about your coaching and about what you do. So if you could, would you let the listeners know how the best way to get in contact with you?
Well, thank you again for that. And it's totally been an honor to be on here. I can, from my standpoint, as we talked about time's flown. So I'm at least having a good time.
Yes.
So if people want to learn more, please head over to infinitylifestyledesign.com. That's one word, infinitylifestyledesign.com. And you can simply look at all the services that I offer. I have 2 free assessments you can take. One is the time management analysis. The other is, if you're closer to retirement, it's the retirement time analysis. Each one of them helps you look holistically at what are your strengths and opportunities for you to be able to figure out next steps you want to do. And then you can just take a look at anything else that I offer there on the front page of the website and research that as well. I'm also on LinkedIn. So you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn and connect with me there. I'd be happy to do that as well.
Awesome. And listeners, you need to check him out. And we'll also have his information in the show notes as well, so that you're able to go directly to his link and reach him there. And you definitely want to go by and do that time management analysis, since it's for free, and that will get you started on the right track, even to find out more information about what David is doing in his coaching to get you to where you want to be. And we know that we are creatures that are created by God, and we want to be able to maximize our potential in him and to be able to optimize our time so that we can do better in what he's called us to do and to help those that he's called us to help. And so I encourage you to check him out, to go over there and to look and find out more information about what he's doing. So David, thank you so much. It was an honor to have you here today on the podcast, and we have just truly enjoyed you being here today.
Thank you so much. Again, such an honor and a pleasure. Appreciate that.
Thank you. And listeners, we are continuing to pray for you. And we pray and know that you would have a wonderfully blessed week. And until next time, God bless. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Tasty Tidbits. If you're enjoying the show, feel free to subscribe, rate, and share with your friends. To learn more about Dr. Tiffany, check her out on Linktree at dr.tiffanywatkins or visit her website, iridescencebytiffany.com. Until next time, stay blessed.